Hello and welcome to yet another episode of Eerie International, episode 480 this week. My name is David from the United States.
I'm Andi from Germany.
And I'm Dave from the UK.
We are united this week to talk about a 2008 film called Birdemic, Shock and Terror. I want to just jump in, but I'm not going to. I'm going to make us wait. Listeners, welcome to the podcast. If this is your first time listening, we are a horror show that talks about horror stuff. Whether it's movies, TV shows, video games, books, comics, I started to say periodicals, probably, stage plays, all kinds of horror formats. We'll take a look at it. Last week we talked about Alfred Hitchcock's The Birds from back in the 60s, and we were following it up with 2008's Birdemic, as I already mentioned, another bird, avian-related horror film.
I don't know if we said that last week, but we only did Hitchcock's The Birds because we wanted to do. Or yeah, so Dave suggested we do Birdemic, and I don't think I'd ever heard of the movie. And looking at it, and skimming the Wikipedia page and where it said it was influenced by the birds, I thought, okay, if it seems like we're not doing a good movie, maybe we should pair it with a good movie that I just need an excuse to watch.
Throw some vegetables in there with the candy. Yeah.
Yes.
No, very good point. And I had also not seen The Bird, so I was all about that, knowing that we were going to be getting to Birdemic. So fantastic point, Andi. All right, what else here? We're on social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, mostly just Instagram these days. If you want to give us a follow, leave a comment, whatever, rate us, review us, whatever it is people do with podcasts these days. And if you have longer form thoughts, feel free to send those in, eerieinternational@gmail.com, and we'll read them on air unless you tell us not to. But yeah, we love getting emails from you guys each week, and I actually have some stuff to talk about that I watched that was recommended from emails this very week, which we can spin into now. So I won't actually kick us off. I'm going to set up that little tease and then misdirect us. Dave, kick us off this week. What horror-related items do you have on the agenda that you consumed?
Not that much, but something that I was going to pick up last week, and then I didn't have my library card with me, so I couldn't get it. And then this week, I did have my library card, so I have picked it up, and I've read half of it so far. It's a comic book. It's co-written by Keanu Reeves. I believe you've talked about it before, David.
Yeah.
BRZRKR.
Yeah.
So, yeah, for those who aren't aware, BRZRKR is based on a story by Keanu Reeves and Matt Kindt, illustrated by Ron Garney, and I'm trying to find all the other stuff on the website, on Wikipedia, because I would like to get...
Pretty sure it's Clem Robbins on lettering, and
Bill Crabtree.
Yeah, okay. Man, I fucking nailed it.
There we go. So yeah, I'm about halfway through it so far. I think last night I read up to chapter 6, because it seems like every issue was called a chapter in this release. I've got it's essentially the hardback collected edition. And yeah, I mean, it starts off with a very, very gory paramilitary operation, and then delves into the history of this character, who, if I remember correctly, was this originally an idea for a movie that Reeves had that couldn't get made, so they went the comic book route?
I don't remember. It's very possible.
I may be imagining this, to be fair.
I know he's pretty or he, at least at the beginning, I'm not sure to what degree. I didn't work on this book. I have nothing to do with it. But based off what I remember, I want to say he was pretty involved at the beginning with it, as like the writer, like the co-plotter. And then it's kind of expanded too. There's a spinoff series that like looks at him at different eras since he's immortal. And then there's also a novel that he co-wrote with China Mieville, which is pretty crazy. Who's a
Book of Elsewhere,
well-known,
apparently. Yeah.
Which I think is like, an alternate universe or something. Like, it's not like it's connected, but I don't think it's like, a direct, piece of the comic book series. I think it's kind of its own thing. But yeah, he seems to be, Reeves specifically seems to be pretty attached to it. A lot of times with stuff like this with celebrities, it's usually like in fact, I just got comps the other day for a series that I lettered, that when I got the trade paperback, Charlemagne the God is like, his name's all over it, and he like produced it and everything. I had no idea he had anything to do with the book when I was working on it. It's like a lot of, and I'm not throwing shade, but like a lot of times it'll be a celebrity thing where it's like, oh, they essentially produced it, like executive producer kind of credit or whatever. And the reason I even bring that up is because with this one, with
someone
Reeves,
in their company signed
exactly,
a contract.
exactly. So I think with this one, Reeves has been a lot more involved. I don't know to what degree, if that's still the case, but I know like he did lots of signings and interviews and like seemed very passionate about it. So
if the look of the character in the first issue is anything to go by,
it's also just Keanu Reeves.
It's literally Keanu Reeves with maybe a few more muscles. I say the first issue not because I haven't read issues 2, 3, 4, and 5, but because he gets a very radical haircut during the first episode for reasons I won't get into too much. But I mean, the basic plot is that B, who is also known as Unut, is a kind of demigod maybe character who can't die. He's essentially kind of like a Wolverine on steroids, who was gifted to his tribe as a weapon by the gods to protect them from the other tribes that were jealous of their position in this valley of plenty. And being immortal and living through multiple ages, it basically follows him all over the place from 79,000 years ago when he was born all the way through to the present day. Some really, really lovely artwork, very grisly artwork, but lovely nonetheless. I was reading it by lamp light. That makes it sound like an 18th century adventurer. I wasn't reading it by
outside with a lantern.
No, it wasn't a gas lamp or anything like that. It was literally like I had a bedside lamp that was on. So maybe I wasn't reading it in optimal conditions, but I did find it a little bit hard to follow at the very beginning. It was very, very kinetic, I would say, the artwork, and I think maybe that was the intention, was to make it a little difficult to follow, perhaps because of the fact that this all would have happened in a brief number of seconds, and B, or Unut, whatever you want to call him, is essentially like a whirling dervish of devastation. So it definitely got that across. There's some interesting layouts in the later issues that I have read, where instead of following the usual top left to bottom right on one page, they've got a couple of double page spreads where it goes the whole way across, and it's kind of split into a top third, a middle third, and a bottom third, and you have to read it almost like old style newspaper comic strip from left to right, all the way from one side of the page to the other and then back again. But the way they set them out, it didn't take too much for me to understand, this is how I have to read this. They play around with some borders and stuff, so each strip, so to speak, is kind of surrounded with its own border, so it's kind of self-contained, so it makes sense visually. And I like the writing a lot in this book. It's probably the best writing that I've experienced all week. We'll get into some slightly less well done writing later on in our main topic, but yeah, I'm going to read the rest of it, and I'm very much enjoying what I've read so far. I've just learned that there is a spin-off which apparently, if I can find the name of it, is going to be doing some stuff with Lovecraftian Cthulhu-style monsters. Come on, where is it? I found the Book of Elsewhere again, and it was around there. One-shot spin-off by Reeves, writer and artist Steve... Is it Scroach?
I have always said Scroachy. Do you remember, Andi, how to pronounce his name?
I think it's... Now I'm unsure. I wanted to say it's Scroce. I have heard people pronounce his name who have worked with him, like Jeff Darrow and the Wachowskis. But now I'm not sure anymore how they pronounced it.
I can't remember either.
Well, he's the artist, and Dave Stewart is the colorist. It's going to be called Poetry of Madness. It was called Poetry of Madness because it was released on July 26, 2023. It's
I was going to say, I think this is the spinoff thing I was talking about. They collected these in trades that were multiple, like each trade has like 3 of these because they did them as like one shots where it's like, here he is in Atlantis, here he is as a Roman centurion, here he is as a cowboy, whatever. I may have made those last 2 up, but
I mean, that's cool though. Like,
but also maybe not. I don't know. I know it jumps around.
There's a Bloodline spin-off as well, and so Genghis Khan will feature or has featured as well. So
no shit, dude. I started to say, I bet it's called BRZRKR Bloodlines because that's the joke we always make. Is Bloodlines is the thing that every franchise gets one, but it sounds like that's literally what it is.
They literally call the series BRZRKR Bloodlines.
Yeah, well, there it is.
I'm down
Never
for
fails.
it. Though. I'm down for it. So yeah, pretty well written. I'm interested to see what this paramilitary government agency that he's attached to, what their angle is, whether it's more of a BPRD or if it's... I don't think it is. I think this is literally government agency trying to manipulate him. And in fairness, he knows he's being manipulated. He just wants he wants to be able to kill things wherever possible because he's got that bloodlust. But also there's an end game that he's got, which the government are working towards to try and help him to essentially become mortal. I don't feel like I'm spoiling much by saying this. This is all stuff that happens in the first issue. Like they'll explain all of this stuff. But yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how things go as the issues continue, especially now that finding out that all of the stuff that has spun off since is following him through time previous to this. So in theory, this could very much have a beginning, middle, and end. But who knows? Who knows? Having an end where it comes to a Keanu Reeves project isn't a guarantee of anything because we had that with John Wick 4, and guess what? There's going to be a 5th one. So yeah, we'll see. We'll see how that goes. But BRZRKR is literally the only thing that I've seen this week that is horror related, and even then, it's literally just because of the sheer amount of blood and guts. So yeah, that's it for me for this week. Who wants to go next?
Andi, I'm going to throw the ball to you now.
Sure, let me pull up my notes because I do have things this week.
All right.
The first thing is I have finally joined the club of people who have seen 28 Years Later. The first one, not the second one, not Bone Temple yet.
Okay.
But yeah, 28 Years Later, we watched it yesterday. And I knew little about the story of the movie. Of course, you guys talked about the movie on this podcast, and you also talked about Bone Temple. But, and maybe you've had the same experience, if you hear information, but you do not know the proper context for the information, you don't necessarily retain the information.
Yeah.
And once you see the movie, then you say, oh, yeah, right, I think they mentioned something like that. Oh, that's what they were talking about. I didn't have the context for it back then, and things like that. I knew that some people loved the movie. I think Bela just recently, in a conversation we had, called it the best movie of last year. And as we know, Bela is the objective opinion on movies. So if he says it's the best movie, it is the best movie, no matter what anyone else says. And you guys liked it. I know that a colleague of mine liked it but didn't like the ending. I knew that the ending was received controversially. And not knowing what that ending was, I just knew there is an ending that some people do not like, and some people still like the movie and do like the ending. I knew that from the beginning of the movie, we see this kid, Jimmy, who doesn't appear for the longest time in the movie, but the name comes up in writing or in carving. So I knew, okay, at some point, Jimmy must show up again. Bianca thought Jamie was Jimmy. she confused the names for some reason. So up until the end, she didn't really realize, okay, this Aaron Taylor Johnson isn't Jimmy from the beginning of the movie.
I didn't think about that.
And then again, something you might have experienced as well. There's movies where you think, oh, this is a great movie, and then you see the ending and think, wow, the ending was bad, and it kind of taints the movie for you. And then there's a movie where it's the other way around, where you see, oh, the movie isn't that great, and then the ending, you see the ending and think, well, this shines a whole new light on the whole movie, and now it's a great movie. So the ending was for me the most exciting part about the movie. I was not invested in the movie itself, in the story or the characters. At no point did I have the feeling if I stopped the movie now, I would really miss something if I didn't watch it till the end. So I can't really say I'm a fan of the movie, but when that ending happened, I was a fan of that movie. I said, that's the movie that I do want to see. When all those Jimmies show up and do weird stuff, and yeah, that's exciting to me. And I know that the Jimmies play a bigger role in Bone Temple. Ray Fiennes' arc was very good as well. His character and the whole structure that he's building there, the Bone Temple thingy. That was interesting. But up until then, the last, 20 minutes or whatever it is, I wasn't that invested, and I felt in this. It's not really bad, but I'm also not really invested in it. It doesn't really speak to me. I don't find a real connection to the movie or the characters. Bianca was annoyed by the look of it, by the out of focus imagery. It's not as bad as an Army of the Dead, but she didn't know that the movie was shot on iPhones. But at some point she asked me why is the movie so out of focus? And I said, because they shot it on iPhone, and that doesn't necessarily have to be the reason for it being or for being in that kind of focus that it is. But I just said we both were sure. Okay, they chose this look intentionally, but still, she found it pretty annoying. I thought in some moments the movie had interesting visual ideas, visually interesting moments where it had a nice I don't know English, where an image looked nice. But overall it didn't really speak to me that much. But still, as that ending happened, I thought, okay, now I want to see Bone Temple. Don't tell me. And I know and again, you talked about it, but I didn't have the context, so I don't really have the information in my head what you already said, how much you already said about Bone Temple, or what you haven't said yet. So don't tell me now that I do have the information.
We won't say anything.
Yeah. Now I'm interested in seeing it. If that ending hadn't happened, I probably hadn't been as interested in seeing it. Maybe because of Near Da Costa, I would have watched it. But now the Jimmies are the real reason why I want to see the second movie.
Yeah, I won't. Now I'm like trying to think what I should and shouldn't say. It definitely does sound like you're pretty primed up to watch the second one. Like the stuff that you mentioned liking and the stuff you mentioned not liking. It's like they heard you and were like, well, let's make a sequel for Andi. So, yeah, that's all.
One question that I do have for you, which isn't spoilery at all. Do you know, did they shoot the other movie also on iPhones, or did they shoot it with conventional cameras? Do you have any idea?
That's a really good question.
I don't remember. I want to say that it was only the first one that they did that with, because I remember reading interviews with her, and specifically they were asking her about how, like, what was the dynamic like, because you're shooting this back to back with this other movie that has this very specific style and very specific, like, how involved were they, like how much did they push. And like my memory of watching the movie, at least, is that it feels very much at a piece with the world, but it doesn't feel like she was trying to do Danny Boyle. Like it feels, I don't know, was that your take too, Dave? Like it feels like it's still part of the universe, but it's not like beholden to the same style.
Yeah, it it felt like it was grounded in the same place without being beholden to the same filming and visual style. But they feel like they're two parts of the same story. They don't feel disparate. Apparently, The Bone Temple was filmed using an Arri Alexa 35 digital camera. I have no idea what one of those is, but it's not an iPhone.
Not a phone at all.
Conventional movie camera.
I would assume something along those lines, yeah. So I think that probably just speaks to just how good the results were that they got from the iPhone. I personally, when you asked that question, Andy, was like, I have no idea what the answer could be. It could be one or the other. But yeah, I think that you probably will notice more differences in Bone Temple from the fact it's a different director than it's a different camera.
I mean, maybe, but they picked up on because I was the same way. Like, I think the whole iPhone thing, I was the same way you were, Dave, with it being like, I thought the first one looked pretty great, and there were moments in it where I was like, oh, I love the way that they like the shot composition or, the framing, whatever else. But I also know that, again, just from reading interviews, I think that the iPhone thing was kind of done in an attempt to like bridge the gap between how they shot the original 28 Days Later on digital video and the passage of time and everything else, while like still trying to hold on to some of that. So when I found that stuff out, I was like, it feels a little gimmicky maybe, but it also I thought looked pretty good. But yeah, the Bone Temple definitely feels more like, I don't know, it's hard to explain. It's usually you don't see like franchises that they let that loose with, where it's like, here, this is very much the same part of an overall thing, but we're not going to have one person overseeing it, or they do that and then they quickly get control back overall, like Star Wars or something like that, or like the newer Star Wars movies. This one was odd to me in that they kind of were able to do their own thing, it seems like, but they also were overall doing one thing. And then the most surprising thing is that it all worked, at least.
Didn't Alex Garland write the second one as well?
Yeah.
Okay, so there is someone overseeing the whole project. If Alex
the
Garland
script, yeah, for sure.
From a story point of view,
yeah, the script for sure.
The locations, as I said, were the same. Having filmed them, not. There are two different words I'm thinking of here. One of them is the right one. One of them is the wrong one. Not concurrently, consecutively, I think, is probably the way they filmed it, right?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, so I think that helps tie everything together, and then the different cameras and the different director will give you a different flavour, but the overall impact is the same. At least it was for me. I mean, I'd be lying if I said that I'd even realised until this conversation came up that 28 years later was filmed on an iPhone. It didn't look. There was nothing at any point during that film where I thought to myself, "This camera looks a little bit iffy." I think it just kind of points to the fact that phones and camera sensors in general have become so sensitive and so good. I know the low light function on Samsungs and Google Pixels especially are superb. Like, I've taken photos in the dead of night and the photo sees more than my eyes can in real life. Like, these things are insane. So I think it speaks to the technological advances of those. I don't think they'll ever beat a proper camera built for the job, but me as a layman, I honestly couldn't tell the bloody difference. So.
I did like one of those visual ideas that they had was how they intercut the action with footage from old night movies.
I like that too. Yeah.
What I didn't like was some of the special effects. That night sequence when they run away from the Alpha, it looked horrendous.
I'm going to have to rewatch it to remember that. I think
the iPhone thing, I think it seemed like when they released the trailer and the first information about the movie, it was a bigger thing that they had shot it on iPhones, and there was this image of this rig where they had, 15 or 20 iPhones attached and things like that.
Oh, yeah.
I think we even talked about it on the show, but when the movie was released, it seems like it wasn't as big of a thing anymore, and that's why I believe some people just didn't remember that it was shot on iPhones. And of course, it's not the first movie to be shot on an iPhone.
I was going to say,
there were other movies before that. And
yeah, the novelty has worn off. Like, if you're going to shoot a movie on iPhone today, it's because either you haven't got the budget for anything else, or I've forgotten what the other reason would be. You got a sponsorship from Apple to do it. I don't know. It's not to be original and to have people marveling at, oh, look at what they were able to do with this, because people have already done it.
It's usually, it's the other times I can think about them doing it are like Steven Soderbergh did that like psychological thriller where that girl's stuck in a hospital, insane asylum type deal. I'm trying to remember the name of it.
Sean Baker was maybe the
and
first
then Sean Baker
one to break out at least on a bigger stage with a feature shot on an iPhone.
Yep, exactly. Which and in those situations, it always felt like, okay, this is like a very sort of like small, centered on people and everyday life kind of things. And so I think that was why it stuck out more on 28 years later, because it was a big budget. But yeah, now that you mentioned that rig, I completely forgot about that, because they did that like, rudimentary Bill Pope fucking Matrix bullet time kind of thing for those shots. Yeah.
The next thing that I want to recommend is something that I haven't watched this week, but as you already mentioned in regards to 28 years later and the whole Jimmy thing, that there is a connection to Jimmy Savile, the former, now deceased British TV host. And a few years ago, Netflix released a 2-part documentary that I watched back then and talked about on Eerie International back then. But now I wanted to bring it up again because of the 28 years later connection for people who may have now seen the movie but don't really know the story of Jimmy Savile, maybe. There's this 2-part documentary, Jimmy Savile, A British Horror Story is the title of it. I think the first part is like 80 minutes and the second one 90 minutes, so it is pretty substantial. And it's the whole story of Jimmy Savile, his career, and his horrendous crimes that were only brought to public after his death, how he, over the course of decades, abused children, and it's pretty horrific. So the subtitle, A British Horror Story, is absolutely apt for this thing. So that's on Netflix. And then I watched something in regards to our main topic that I will just quickly mention here. It's a short documentary on YouTube from Vice called The Worst Movie Ever Made, ? The True Story of Birdemic.
Oh shit.
Like 26 minutes. You now say, oh shit, and I say, I sent you the link when we talked about Birdemic for the first time, so a few weeks ago. It's not the first time that you're hearing about this.
Don't remember this at all.
I hadn't watched it.
I probably
hadn't
even
watched it
saved
back then, but I sent it to you and said, this looks interesting. So yeah, and
I see it now. Yeah, you sent it with the YouTube link, and I think I just overlooked. I thought it was. Yeah, I see now. I missed this.
Yeah. I watched it after the movie today. The interesting thing about it, and why I wanted to mention it, is it's made by Evan Husney. Evan Husney is the other guy that created and produced Dark Side of the Ring. The first guy being Jason Eisner, who made the movie Hobo with a Shotgun, and Evan Husney is the other guy.
Oh, cool.
Dark Side of the Ring and all the follow-up series were also made for Vice. And Evan Husney, so Vice did a series of videos on outsider movie makers in 2016, and Evan Husney did this one on the director of Birdemic. And the interesting story is that Evan Husney is at least partially responsible for Severin picking up Birdemic for release.
Oh, no shit.
He was one of the first people that saw the movie at Sundance when Justin Nguyen guerrilla style marketed his movie and showed it at a local pub while Sundance Film Festival was going on in Austin, and Evan Husney went there and saw it and followed or was like more or less in a partnership with Justin Nguyen for the next couple of years. So in this Vice documentary, they have footage from 2009, 2010 from Sundance and from them promoting the movie. And then in whatever 2015, 2016, he visits Justin Nguyen again and interviews him about that time, talks to some of the actors. It's short. It's, as I said, only 26 minutes, so it's not very substantial, but you get glimpses of what was Birdemic in 2009. Now, where is Justin Nguyen at this point in time? He has already made Birdemic 2 and wants to make Birdemic 3. And Evan Husney, having lived with him, having lived through that time with him, and now having also 5 years distance to that time, how does he reflect on what was going on at the time? So that makes it pretty interesting that it's from the perspective of someone who was actually there when Birdemic happened.
That's awesome.
So that's on YouTube.
Yeah.
And there's also a piece that Evan Husney wrote. It's linked in the Wikipedia footnotes. That's how I found it. I think that's from 2010. So that's pretty early on, before the Vice thing, a little blog post, and it's called Burden of Dreams. Burden with an I, of course. Burden of Dreams, the story of Birdemic. and yeah, that's also his recounting how he met Justin Nguyen and how they partnered up for getting Birdemic released. And
that's awesome.
Yeah, that's it. That's what I have for this week.
Alrighty. I've got a couple of quick things I wanted to mention. The first one, I'm not going to go into super in depth for a few reasons, but I did want to quickly mention our friend Smart Otaku had reached out about and recommended a few different things here recently. One of the ones that had stuck out in particular for me, I want to say it might have even been last episode or the episode before that at the latest, but The Amazing Digital Circus, this animated web series, created, written, directed by Gooseworks and produced by Glitch Productions. It's on Glitch's YouTube page. Dave, you said you watched a little bit of this maybe for Generation Animation, or you just were aware of it?
We watched the first episode of it, and it's mad. It's crazy.
Yeah, I have become kind of obsessed with it. I like it a lot. So it's when he first mentioned it in the email, and I was looking it up, and you were reading through. Oh, that's right. It was the message that got hijacked. Now that I'm remembering this, the thing that jumped out at me in the Wikipedia description was that it was inspired by a couple of things. One, the early CGI TV shows from the early mid 90s, which would have been right there smack dab in my childhood. So stuff like Reboot and Beast Wars, and even sections in movies, animated films, whatever, that would have this again, very early prototypical CGI stuff that had its own kind of movement to it. Man, betrays my Christian upbringing, but VeggieTales was a big one like that back then, that they were churning those out on tape. So I saw a lot of those, a similar sort of vibe. So that aesthetic combined with the short story I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream by Harlan Ellison. So I want to do an episode over this, and I'll talk to you guys about that after we record. We can figure out something, but specifically pairing those two things together, because that was, I think I even mentioned it when Otaku first messaged in about it, that I've been wanting to do that short story on the podcast, of just haven't been able to yet to figure out a theme or something around it. So I think this might be it. But it's, yeah, I'm so into it. It's a weird, like most things like this, it's kind of hard to pin down or describe, but there's something, I know that there's definitely the fact that it's so unique and odd and specific is a big part of the appeal for me, but also I think it's just really well made. The animation, the character designs, the acting, the voice actors, it's all just, I think, pretty expertly done. Definitely, and I don't have a ton of experience watching web animated series geared towards adults, so it's not like I have a ton to compare it to, but based off of what I've seen in the past and based off what I would imagine the bar is set at, I would imagine it's pretty high for that. It feels very much like something that would be on I don't know, Adult Swim or something where it would, it's just crazy polished, really well done. And it's also a weird, like, it definitely fits into adult animation, but it also doesn't have overt stuff in it. Like, there's not like tons of sexual innuendos or jokes or swearing. In fact, one of the things with the show is that they can't swear. They're not able to. When they try to, the program, scrambles it out for them. So they're not even able actually to swear. And it does, like, that combination of the Harlan Ellison short story, which for anyone who doesn't know, it was written, I don't remember now, in the probably 50s or 60s, March 1967, about these people that are stuck in this computer program, and there's this like AI overlord that's torturing them, and they have really no way of getting out, and there's new ways that they're able to be tortured that you wouldn't necessarily consider because of the parameters of what they're locked into. And so this AI is finding new ways of fucking with time and perception and all kinds of stuff to really torture them. So there's an aspect of that in this, but then mixed in with that weird, like, kind of cute, but also kind of liminal space, like off-putting backrooms kind of thing from the 90s. And they tap into like a lot of deeper stuff, like psychological stuff, whether it's depression or body dysmorphia or alienation, lonely, like, just in ways that aren't smacking you in the face with it necessarily, or being too, I don't know. It's with each episode I've watched, there's been things that I've laughed at. There's been moments that I've been pulled in and like connected to a character. That character might be an Australian bank robbing crocodile or something that they introduced in that episode, and yet they're able to find depth and like existentialism and like just all kinds of stuff out of it. They're doing them at kind of their own pace. So based off what I've read, there's going to be 9 episodes in the season. I think there's 6 episodes out now. It might be 7. And the new episode comes out in March. So they're kind of just releasing them as they get them done, as opposed to like a set schedule before that. Yeah, I could talk about it a ton more. I won't go too more in depth in case we end up doing an episode over it, but yeah, I'm really into it. I like it a lot. And it, in some ways, it's not like what's the name of that game we did, Dave? The visual novel, Doki
Doki Literature Club.
Yeah. It's not exactly like Doki Doki Literature Club, but it scratches a similar itch for me, where it's like, here we are taking these disparate ideas from very specific sources of media or genres or whatever else, and mashing them together in a way that you wouldn't think of, but kind of works and kind of pulls you in on the merits of each of those genres or mediums or whatever else, but then also kind of just blends it into something new. And there's like, it definitely fits into horror as like one of the subgenres that it has going on, but it's in a very specific and different way than you would suspect. Like, it's not, a slasher, or it wouldn't even necessarily call it psychological horror, although there are times where it dips into that. It's very much its own thing. Yeah, I've been completely kind of like blown away by it. I've gone back and rewatched episodes. Like, I haven't just been binging it. I've watched now the first 5 or 6 episodes. I'm in the middle of the one where they all get guns, which sounds crazy, and it is crazy when it happens in the episode. But it's this like firefight episode. But the ones before that, there have been some I've gone back and just rewatched the entire episode, because there's stuff I feel like I've either missed or I've been completely impressed by this show. So really into it. I had to immediately tell my 9-year-old son, you're going to see, when you log into YouTube, you're going to see thumbnails for this. You can't watch it. So don't watch it. Don't worry about it. I think he could, like, again, there's nothing like on that I remember like on its face objectionable or anything like that, but it does definitely go into areas with mental health or more adult sort of feelings, where it's like, this is not, it's not even gonna necessarily click for a 9-year-old potentially, but it might freak them out, because it's it looks very engaging as a show for younger kids because of like the style and the aesthetic of it and the colors and everything. But Yeah, it's very much not. It's very much its own weird thing. But yeah, wanted to thank Smart Otaku again for recommending that one, because it's become this like new little obsession for me this week. And then the only other thing I wanted to mention, I did go and see Iron Lung, the film by Markiplier, YouTuber. Mark Fishbach, I think is how you pronounce his last name. But he's credited as Markiplier in the movie too. I wondered if he would do like a full Christian name credit for the movie, but it says Markiplier. I was into this. It's a tough. I was talking to our friend Jordan about it earlier this week, and he was asking, what I've read different things. He's a big Lovecraftian cosmic horror guy. And he was like, I've read it mentioned and kind of recommended on different cosmic horror, Lovecraftian sort of like subreddits, whatever else, do you think I would be into it? And I was like, man, I don't know. Like, it's such a specific thing. I can't overuse that word enough. Like, it's an adaptation of an indie horror game made by a YouTuber who did Let's Plays on that game, fell in love with it, collaborated with the developer of the game, the guy who made everything. This YouTuber then wrote, directed, edited, and starred in the film, self-financed it, has this like, it's very beholden to the style of the game. It's not about making it like a mass appeal sort of thing, because the game itself is pretty opaque in a lot of ways. And Markiplier obviously loved that aspect of it and didn't want to lose that. So based off of, I have the game, I haven't played it yet. I was going to play it this week and completely forgot. I think I got wrapped up in Amazing Digital Circus, but I've even watched Markiplier play it. So I've watched Let's Plays of it. And they didn't want to lose that. They wanted to keep it pretty, again, opaque and unknowable. So it's this like weird passion project that is a massive success on pretty much every level, I think, for the most part. Like, even critically, I think it on Rotten Tomatoes or whatever, I think when I looked it up, it was in like the 50s maybe, which for a debut feature with these parameters, I'm like, that's a fucking win, dude. Like, it's pretty crazy that it's honestly even that high, because it's not a movie made to, just for anybody to necessarily be able to completely enjoy. There's definitely flaws. It's too long. I think that seems to be kind of agreed upon. It's like 2 hours long, which is, for the premise of the movie and the style of it definitely, I think, is too long. I didn't find it necessarily boring or bad in that way with the length. It was just one of those very easy things you can look at right away and be like, they could definitely have cut out half an hour here and it would have worked, just as well, but definitely almost likely better. But there was also so much about it that I was kind of charmed by. So like the very brief breakdown is essentially, and this is the game for the game and the film. We're in like a sci-fi sort of future. There's this, I forget what they call it. It's like the Quiet Rapture or the Lonely Island. It's not called that. It's got some name. And this event that they call it, where all of the planets, and I think stars too, just blip out of existence, disappear. So basically the only humans that are left are people that were on like space stations or spaceships or whatever else. And so they're on this kind of like last ditch effort to find anything. They end up finding this moon that's just covered in blood, like oceans of blood. And so they send down this guy who is a like convict inmate. He was being held on a space station, like a prison or whatever. And they send him down in a submarine. And so the whole movie is set in this little submarine. And there's aspects to it, like there's different pieces of the submarine he opens up and is able to kind of explore a little bit. Obviously, it's cramped, but so we're in just this submarine with this convict guy. He's talking to people on the radio. We get a little bit with flashbacks, but it's mostly just him there. And again, like the game, he's not able to see anything. There's no windows, or there might be windows, I don't remember, but it's all just blood, so he can't see anything. He has a camera that if he hits it, like 3-4 seconds later, there's a big screen and it shows in this sort of like X-ray view what it took a picture of outside of the sub. So again, very much like the game, where you're trying to kind of navigate and pilot around in this area that you can't see. You're using this camera. And then so from there, he's able to start seeing different structures and skeletons and stuff like that are outside. So very Lovecraftian. Comes in later too with this cosmic thing of like maybe there's some sort of elder god consciousness being, whatever, that's communicating with him telepathically or like through the ship, even though it's clearly not the same people that he's talking to. So there's like a little bit of a psychological horror kind of losing my mind, unraveling type of deal. And then there's also some like body horror kind of stuff that comes into it as well. So the attention to detail and the atmosphere and the set, and I don't know. I was kind of won over by all of it, even though it was definitely a thing where it was what's the phrase, like greater than the sum of its parts or whatever. Like it didn't, for what it was. I don't know. There's a lot of, as I was going through it, I was just kind of like, I don't know. I'm kind of into this. But again, I can see where, but like for a first time feature, for, you know, it was supposed to be in like 200 theaters and it ended up being in thousands of them because of word of mouth. It ended up breaking into the top 10 box office. Like he was able to pull off a lot with so little, relatively speaking. And yeah, I was kind of into it. It made me want to know more about, I only kind of tangentially know about Markiplier. Like obviously he's a massively successful YouTuber. I've seen clips of his. I honestly feel like I know more about him through other YouTubers. So other YouTubers that I have watched or have gotten into their channels, when they know him or have met him or are friends with him, like everyone pretty consistently from everything I've ever seen seems to have only good stuff to say about him, that he's a really nice dude and he's very supportive of other YouTubers and it seems like a genuine guy. I've always heard good stuff about him, but have never really engaged with his stuff. But I went through his YouTube channel later after I watched the movie and saw he did like some interactive kind of narrative YouTube stuff that was a little goofier, but pretty well done from what I saw. And like, it seems to be all a pretty legitimate kind of thing. I don't know, with YouTube culture, like obviously you're going to run into a wide variety of personalities, and you've got people like fucking douchebag Paul brothers and stuff like that. And then you've got Mr. Beast, and you've like, it's kind of all over the gamut. And at least with his stuff, that's what stuck out to me, is that it seems pretty genuine and not like he's like trying to make some quick money. Honestly, I would imagine, if I had to guess, he's made a lot less money with this movie than than he has with his channel, based off of things that you hear between sponsorships and viewer numbers and stuff like that. So yeah, it won me over. I was kind of charmed by it. And I think especially Jordan liked it as well. It seems like quite a bit. So I think especially if you have an interest in cosmic horror, Lovecraftian sort of stuff, and if you are okay with sort of going into something different that is, going to have some flaws, but is also, going to be something that you're not necessarily used to seeing, I think it's definitely worth a watch. And at least around here, it's still in theaters. It feels like something they're kind of keeping in there until it runs out of steam, but so far seems to be doing really well. So yeah, I recommend it. It's odd and yeah, again, won't be for everyone, but I dug it. All right, let's get into our subject of the week. That is it for me this week. Birdemic, Shock and Terror, 2008, American independent. This is how Wikipedia says it. American independent romantic thriller horror film. Written, directed, executive produced by James Nguyen, starring Alan Baugh and Whitney Moore. Inspired by Alfred Hitchcock's The Birds, Birdemic tells the story of a romance between the two main characters as their small town is attacked by birds. It was also inspired by the environmental documentary An Inconvenient Truth, which led to the film having an environmental message. Largely self-financed and produced through Nguyen's Moviehead Pictures Company for a budget of $10,000. Film has gained notoriety for its poor quality, with many critics citing it as one of the worst films of all time. After a limited theatrical release, it was picked up for distribution by Severin Films in 2010. Andi mentioned that a little bit ago, a bit about that. And yeah, this, as we've mentioned in prior episodes, like it was been on my radar since then for Tommy Wiseau, The Room-esque reasons. One that people kind of rallied around as like, oh, this is a terrible movie, but it's a lot of fun to watch. And I know they did like what the fuck is it called? Riff Tracks, which is like, I think I forget how it all breaks down, but like the Mystery Science Theater 3000 guys, some of those old school guys, I'm pretty sure is what Riff Tracks is. So like it even kind of has found pretty quickly found like a cult midnight movie sort of status type thing that people got rallied around. And then, as Andi mentioned, a couple of sequels have been made. Birdemic 2, The Resurrection, and Birdemic 3, Sea Eagle, in 2013 and 2022, respectively. Dave, I'm going to have you kick us off this week. This was one that you brought to the table and had mentioned. I think, and I can't remember how, so maybe you can mention that too. There was a connection to Critical Role, maybe?
Yep.
There was something. Yeah. So, how did this one land on your radar? And then what did you think overall? And then we can throw the ball around.
So it landed on my radar because I thought that I recognized Whitney Moore from something after seeing her in a few episodes of season 4 of Critical Role, where she plays a demon called Tyranny. And I very much enjoy what she's doing with the Tyranny character. She's basically a chaos gremlin, and that's always my favorite type of player to watch. And I was like, I've seen you from something else. I can't quite put my finger on it. I think ultimately it turned out that I may have seen her on one of the adverts in the earlier days of Critical Role, when they were part of oh god, I can't remember the name of the place that they were a part of before they separated and did their own thing.
It was something in Geek and Sundry.
Geek and Sundry, yes, thank you.
Yeah.
I think that there was some crossover there. She had like a metal review show that she did for a little while, and it was on the same network, and so there was some crossover with adverts where they would all help each other out by being an extra body in an advert or whatever. But while I was going through all of the IMDb and Wikipedia entries for what she'd done in her career, something took my eye, and it was that she was in a movie called Birdemic. And I was like, well, that sounds like a weird name for a movie, and it came out about 12 years before the pandemic, so let's see what this is about. And I clicked on it, and it turned out it was a horror movie, and I thought, this will be something to bring up as a possible watch, because it would be interesting to see her acting in something from years before I knew who she was. And then I started seeing all of the reviews for it and all of the feedback from different people about having seen it, about how this was quite possibly the worst movie of all time. And then you guys knew what it was when I mentioned it, and that's normally either a really good thing or a really bad thing. So I watched it, and this is the worst movie that I have ever seen in my life. I just want to go out on a limb here and just say, I've said some really harsh things about some movies that we've talked about on this show before. And I'm ready to take a lot of that back, because I didn't realize just how badly a movie could be made. Like, everything about this film, the acting, the filming, the quality of the film stock, whether it's video or early digital, I don't know. It couldn't even be early digital. This was made in like 2008 and eventually found a way to release in 2010. The tracking shots are abysmal, like absolutely fucking abysmal. There are so many things. I wrote reams that I'm going to refer to while we're talking about stuff, just so that I didn't forget anything. But like, you know, we talked about last week about how The Birds takes a while to get going. Like, it's a third of the way through the movie before anything really happens. It's literally, and I looked at what the time on the video was when the first actual bird attack started. It's literally halfway through the movie, like almost bang on 45 minutes into the movie of a 93-minute movie. This movie is not 3 minutes away from being a perfect movie. This movie is 3 minutes away from ruining my entire theory on that subject. And as such, I will never use that joke ever fucking again. I enjoyed watching this movie so much, but it is honestly one of the worst things that I have ever put into my eyes, or anyone else could put into their eyes. And I I apologize for putting anyone else through this, for endangering any marriages that may have been endangered through forcing people to watch this. I genuinely did not know what I was doing, and that's all I shall say on this matter.
All right, let me throw it over to Andi. What did you think of Birdemic?
There was a lot of shaking heads and a lot of disbelief and a lot of gasps and sighs while watching this movie. But I must say, there was also a lot of laughter. I don't know the last time that I laughed so loudly in watching this movie.
Yeah.
And here come the quotes that I said. I have more quotes. There's a dialogue that happened between my wife and myself about halfway through the movie. I said, I have regained my passion for film. To which she replied, I have lost my will to live. And I think that encapsulates the experience that is Birdemic shock and terror. I had so much fun watching this movie because it is so bad. Which lasts for maybe an hour.
Yeah. I like too how you guys together formed the equal or the very different yet equally important two halves of Werner Herzog, essentially in those two statements. Such the depth of humanity and the heights of creativity coming together. Sorry, go ahead.
We knew this movie would be bad, and we talked about this in the past. David remembers when we watched the Not Quite Hollywood documentary on Ozploitation.
Yeah.
And it's all these weird movies and bad movies, and you said, now I want to watch all these movies, and I said, well, the good thing is you've seen the best bits of these movies in this documentary. When you watch the whole thing, it's probably not as entertaining. Same with the Bad Movie Bible, the YouTube channel that we've mentioned in the past, and I know Dave watches that channel. Bianca and I are devoted subscribers to that channel, and this is exactly the kind of movie that comes up on the Bad Movie Bible channel. But you don't have to see the whole movie watching those video essays with a funny commentary. And I said we need to watch such movies more often, and Bianca said no, we don't. We watch the Bad Movie Bible. That's the best bits. That's enough. But still, after probably within the first minute, I thought. I was questioning life choices. How did my life lead me here watching this movie? And it's the type of movie, and I watched it on YouTube. I found it on YouTube. I found several versions of it on YouTube, or several copies. But it's that type of movie where after the first 2 minutes you question, is it the YouTube rip that is so weird? The sound is off. Is there someone having fun with this movie and uploaded it to YouTube that way? The sound that her shoes are making walking out of that diner, that can't be terrible. Natural. I think it is the movie. I think it's correct. It's not someone adding to the movie and uploading it on YouTube as a joke. But after a while, you realize, okay, I think this is just the movie. They don't know how to hold a camera upright. The movie always tilts to the right in some weird way, sometimes to the left. I wanted to send them a level just to retroactively find them the horizon line, make them find the horizon line. The good thing. The good thing about the movie is there's so many sequences that just go on for, in a normal movie, you would say too long, where no one is talking. That's the good bits of the movie, where you have just scenery or cars driving around. That's how the movie starts out, with a way too long car ride. And then you realize, okay, now they're talking. Let me get into that car again, please, and drive around and give me some weird synth music that you credit every single bit of music in the end credits. But there were so many moments where I just laughed out loud, and I had so much fun. It was a combination of the disbelief and, I don't know, terror that made me enjoy the movie. I've never seen The Room. It's probably the type of movie that is best watched at one of those screenings with people who have seen the movie and maybe with the filmmaker in attendance. I don't know. But watching Birdemic on the couch at home, sometimes these things can go wrong where the fun of it only works in a group. But with this one, well, I was my own group. So, yeah. And I mean, Bianca has at some points stopped watching a movie with me that I watch for the show, and when she decides, okay, this is not for her, she goes and does something else or plays a game or whatever. With this one, she didn't really stop watching the movie. She left a few times to do something in the kitchen and didn't want me to pause the movie, but she always did come back and watched the rest of the movie with me. So although she also questioned her life choices and threatened divorce on me, it didn't make her stop watching the movie for the entirety of the movie, at least. So it couldn't have been that bad. But she also wasn't keen on watching parts 2 and 3, which I threatened. But now, having seen bits of part 2 in that short Vice documentary, I don't need to see part 2. David. Oh, sorry, Dave. You want to say something?
I was just going to say. I have to say. I feel like they upgraded the dive bombing in the second part. At least they didn't use old audio of dive bombing planes crashing into battleships. Like they just went with the old blood puddle.
Yeah. From what Evan Husney says in that short Vice documentary, it seems like because they got most of the people back for part 2. Although Whitney Moore, it's her name, right? Is it Whitney Moore?
Yeah, for good reason she didn't return. We'll get into that.
No, she did return.
Wait, she did? What the fuck? She said she would never... my...
And in that documentary, Evan Husney asked her about what was... When the shooting was over for Birdemic, what was her take on it? And she said she said something like she was relieved that she would never have to see that guy again.
Yeah. That's why I'm so surprised she came back for the second one. Holy shit.
Yeah, I don't know how big her role is, but they show scenes with her and the male lead and some other people. But Evan Husney says in the second movie, it is that type of movie where it feels like the people making the movie now know what they're doing and try to make a shitty movie. After the kind of success of the first movie,
you won't have to try hard.
Is done very seriously, because for the director it is a serious project. But with the second one, people who still in the first one thought, or at least when they started doing the first one, thought they were doing a serious movie. In the second one, now they know they're not doing that, and so it seems to be that type of movie where the asylum thing where we're doing a shitty movie on purpose, and that's not
Snakes on
the
same
fun.
Yeah.
David.
Yeah, I mean, what am I going to add here that you guys haven't already touched on? It's really bad. Here's where it was odd for me specifically was, so The Room came out in 2003, and it was one. So let's see, 2004 was when my family moved back from Brazil to Indiana permanently, or back to the States permanently, and we were in Indiana. And around that time would have been when I was starting to realize I have an interest in filmmaking, and that would have been when I would have first seen the American Movie, the documentary. It would have been when I read Rebel Without a Crew, the Robert Rodriguez book. I was then reading about The Room. I remember specifically reading about it, and I want to say it was an Entertainment Weekly magazine. It was in a physical magazine, but that there was this thing happening where people were having these parties of screening The Room, and it was starting to become a thing where I think there was a big billboard for it that he had done, and in LA, I forget what the billboard. There was something there, but it was becoming this midnight movie thing. I'm trying to remember now if I've even actually seen The Room. I know I've seen scenes from it. I've seen The Disaster Artist, the movie that Franco did about the making of it. I think I even might have read the book that movie's based off of. And so I think in my head this was tied kind of close to it. So it came out in 2003. Birdemic came out 2008. By that point, I was in college specifically for film production and was making my own little short movies and was in the editing bay at Ball State and, learning how to use all of these tools and checking out cameras not every weekend, but on weekends from the school to go off and make stuff or whatever else. What I was not prepared for was how much this looks like that exact era of making little shitty like short films and then going to class, watching the other shitty short films that your classmates made, and that entire like subculture and the amount of people at that age in their early 20s that think that, because they've seen a few foreign films and they live in Indiana, this is putting them, way ahead of the pack and just pretend like, I don't know. It was crazy how much the look of this and the style and the vibe immediately transported me back to college, because I think I want to say The Room was shot on film. This, I didn't look it up, but this to me looks like that DV, like digital video era of the cameras that we were using at Ball State. And so there was a weird, like, I don't know, I wouldn't even call it emotional, but just like everything about the aesthetic immediately snapped me into that headspace where it was kind of a nostalgia, but not for good reasons necessarily. And just the amount of stuff that at least for me, I wasn't prepared for, that is so bad. Like even just stuff like room tone, like dialogue, like cuts of dialogue will sound wildly different in the same conversation in the same space, because it'll be like clearly they recorded dialogue in this moment, then they recorded dialogue from the next person, but he didn't record a room tone or didn't lay one underneath everything else. So even with the dialogue and the audio stuff, you're getting very noticeable cuts that are happening, and the sound levels are constantly dipping and increasing. And it's one of those things too that like this happens in lettering every once in a while too with making comics, where I'll send something back to somebody and I'll be like, look, this isn't going to fit. I'm either going to fill the entire panel with word balloons and it's going to cover all of the art, or we're going to have to move some of this dialogue, or if it's going to have to be, whittled down. It's just not going to work the way that it is. And we can't move it here because this will mess up this pit, whatever is the case. And it doesn't happen as much now because I work, I don't work as much in the like just strictly like first time comic indie scene kind of stuff. But it still will happen every once in a while where somebody will be like, well, can you just shrink the dialogue for that panel? And it's like, no, like there's something there's immediately something so weird about that, where you're taking a situation where it's like, okay, this needs a proper solution, and you're just kind of trying to brute force it into something. And that's what this movie feels like, even with the basic stuff like editing and sound mixing and stuff like that. Like, oh, that take that we had on set that day was way too quiet. We don't need to re-record it or ADR it. Boost that motherfucker 400% on audio. So suddenly you have like a very blown out take from someone audio wise, and then it goes back down to normal. It's just, it's constant. Like there's so much stuff about it down to minute, like just granular sort of levels of sound mixing or looks or whatever else. And that's at the most basic shit you can get. Beyond that, you start looking at everything else, and it's just ridiculous thing after ridiculous thing. I saw one person's review on Letterboxd was like the story of a couple of aliens trying to fit in with humans, and then a bird attack happens. Like that's really more what the movie is like. Like nothing is natural. It's so awkward and odd. Like you can tell things were probably first takes, or they weren't, but it was from a director who like doesn't know what he's doing. There's I don't know, there were at times for me definitely secondhand embarrassment kind of stuff where you're just like, oh my gosh, like this isn't, it's almost hard to find it funny. I watched it by myself, too, so that probably had something to do with it. But like there are times where you're just like, I can't believe that that this got out. Like, there's just stuff, I don't know. And that's not even taking into account the bird shit, which is just, yeah. I mean, on another one of those things where it's just kind of like, I see how this became a cult thing, but also, I don't know. When we look at other, like, quote unquote worst movies ever made, there's usually, it seems like, I don't know if time helps age it better, or if it's just the baseline quality is always a little bit higher than what you'd expect. Like, to me, this is one where the baseline quality is actually legitimately very low. Like, it feels like stuff that we saw that I would see all the time, not necessarily in special effects, but just in terms of, like, there's just absolutely no grasp over, like, to give you an example, there's I remember one time I was in an editing bay and somebody had left their project files. Everybody would work off of hard drive. So you'd bring in your hard drive and connect it to Final Cut Pro or whatever you were using, and edit your stuff and then take it with you. So nothing's on the computer. Somebody left something on the computer. It was a film thing that they were working on. And in fact, I think it was open. So I played it, was like watching the scene that somebody had been cutting or whatever. And it was these two actors. It was like a guy and a girl, and they were having, I think, a boyfriend and girlfriend or something, and they're having like an argument. And these two actors were fucking going for it. So it's all student stuff, right? So it's student that's editing the film. It's students that are acting in it from, like, the theater department, whatever else. And I remember I took a little clip of it to send to Austin. And there's a line from that thing that Austin and I, to this day, I'm 37 and he's 42. Like, we quote to this day. And I saw this when I was probably 20. And it's this girl, and she goes, I just have so much love for you. And then she goes, up to the brim and overflowing. And she says the sentence that exact way, where it's like there's more to the sentence, but there's clearly not. It stops there. But so we'll say that sometimes, like, up to the brim and overflowing, this, like, weird cadence thing. Like, that's what this movie feels like for 90 fucking minutes. It's just this weird thing that you feel kind of embarrassed to be watching. You feel kind of embarrassed for the people that are involved. Like, they're, depending on how much drugs or alcohol and people are involved, it could be a party movie. Like, it can be a fun, like, comedic night out. Like, it's just such a weird thing. Did I like it? Like, yeah, I mean, I guess, yeah. But there is also something about it, like, when we watch Plan 9 or when we watch Troll 2 or some of these other movies, there's a competency level there, from my memory at least, of those films that this movie just does not have. And so it is a kind of weird, unique experience, because it's not even that it's just cheesy and you're clicking into that and having fun, or campy or whatever else. It's that it just doesn't really seem to have any grounding in almost any reality, whether that's filmmaking or interpersonal communication, like how humans behave. Like, it's just, there's just so much going on with it that it's almost overwhelming. I fell asleep watching it at one point, woke up, was like, it doesn't matter. Went back and watched stuff that I missed, like, kind of cobbled together. But and it doesn't really affect the movie almost at all, because it's, and this, I've been ranting about this. The last thing I'll say too, the perspective that you have, Dave mentioned this, you guys have both touched on this already, this phenomenon, but like it fucks with your perception of time too, because like you mentioned, Dave, like the overall time of it, but then at the beginning I remember feeling like these credits have been going on for 45 minutes. Like, there's no way. And it is legitimately, like, it's only 4 minutes, but 4 minutes for credits is crazy, especially the, like, even just the way the title cards are coming. I had to call them title cards is a stretch. Even the way that the font is coming up is so odd and timed strangely, and then it'll slow down and there won't be credits for a little bit, and you're like, okay, the movie's getting ready to start, and then it doesn't. It keeps going, and then there's like you said, Andi, there's these driving shots. The driving shots aren't even framed out the window. A lot of times you're seeing like a third of the frame is blurry dashboard that's in front of them. Like, it's just so strange, and in a way that similarly to The Room, I did constantly wonder, and I'm excited to watch the Vice thing that you sent and read that article. I've got the article pulled up now too, of just like, what's this fucking dude like? Because that was one of the things with The Room, and Tommy Wiseau, however you say his name, is that like in the movie, the disaster artist leans into this a little bit. At what, like, this doesn't seem like something someone is in on the joke for. And so it feels kind of like, what are we making fun of something that this is this dude's like passion, but then maybe it changes over time and they realize either that they might have more success if they lean into it as a joke. But then there is kind of something like kind of heartbreaking about that you have this person who has to pivot from being this thing that they love and are passionate about to being like, oh, well, I am okay with people thinking that it's complete trash and making fun of it. And then there's that whole dynamic and angle too, like you guys have mentioned with the sequels, where it's like, okay, well, now we're leaning into the joke. Well, okay, does that immediately rob it of what made the first one special in a specific way? Like, it's not a new phenomenon, but and like Ed Wood, I think was a similar deal too, in a lot of ways. Like, but there is a thing where you start to think about like, what is this like for the person who made it? And it can't be like, there's no aspect of it as you're watching it that you think this had to be on purpose. Like, it feels very much like it was not meant to be made fun of, which puts you in an odd spot because it's very bad and very easily made fun of. So it's movies like this are always, there's always a point for me where I hit it where I'm just like, what's going on here? Like, it's kind of the inverse of when you watch American Movie. I've never watched Coven, the short like horror film that he's making in that. I have a copy of it on VHS. I've never watched it. But that documentary is about him. It's less about the quality of the movie or the success or even like what's the barometer for success for something like that. And when it comes to creativity and everything else. So you have like this sort of inverse look at it where you're not judging the ultimate product, but you're maybe not judging, but you're observing and getting to know this person and the depth of passion and everything else that they have for it. So it's maybe that's where that aspect of my brain comes from, is like starting to think about, who is James Nguyen in all of this and like how does he, so yeah, maybe some of those answers are, I would imagine, addressed in the Vice documentary that Andi, you mentioned, but yeah, just a fucking lot to unpack. I like it makes sense that we connected to this to the Birds, but also like could not be more wildly different on every level, even as just the idea of it being a movie.
It's quite fitting because the documentary does acknowledge the fact that the director of Birdemic is a big time fan of Hitchcock, to the point that like you see in one of his rooms, he's got Birdemic poster on one wall, and then directly next to it on the other wall, it's got, I think, Vertigo and the Birds. And he even had a photo taken, which was colour and reversed angle, but essentially the same photo as Hitchcock had taken with a bird perching on the end of his cigar. So like he's not at all afraid of those comparisons, because it's very clear that he was trying to make his version of the Birds. The problem is, with the best will in the world, and this is something else that they talk about in that documentary that Andi linked to us. James Nguyen is not particularly blessed with the English language, and I know I'm not either, so I can't exactly speak too much on that. But his script, he insisted on it being delivered as written, and the actors were constantly like, we tried to improve it, we tried to just change the words here and there for it to be more natural, but he wanted it word for word. And like that contributes a lot to, I think, the woodenness of a lot of it. I have to say though, like despite that, there are a couple of performances in this movie that I think are not actually that bad. Like, I think that Whitney Moore doesn't do terribly, considering she's straight out of school and this is like one of her first, if not her first, acting gigs. I felt like she delivered her lines with a level of naturality that her co-star Alan Barr just couldn't manage. That guy is like the walking embodiment of Mokujin from Tekken, if you guys have ever played that game. Basically just a giant model of a combat model of a human being made out of logs tied together with chain. Like, he couldn't give a performance if his life depended on it, bless him. And the fact that he met the director in acting school, I think points more to the fact that that acting school has failed its students than anything else. Also,
he can't even walk naturally.
He can't even walk naturally. No, that's like literally one of my first notes.
The movie starts with this long car ride, and I was sick of the car ride. And then we see the guy walking down the pavement. I thought, let's get back into the car. The guy can't even walk naturally. I'd rather watch the crooked camera in the car over the synth music than see this guy walk.
Literally, my fifth note is lead actor is wooden, can't even walk naturally. Like, it was like I was connected to you through the hive mind at that point, Andy. It's incredible. Like, the tracking shots of the car are terrible. They didn't like. Maybe this is part of the reason why people love these kind of movies as much as they do, because it makes you feel way too competent than you probably actually are in the same field. But like, I was constantly watching this and thinking to myself, if I was setting that shot up, I would have had the camera on the same road as the car, so that the angle, the amount of the sweeping motion that the camera would have to make to track the car would be minimal. But then as he turns and does a U-turn and comes down one of these side turns, then the camera can pan across and follow it, and like keep it center frame at all fucking times. It felt like his direction. And I think he was probably behind the camera, so he didn't even direct it so much as he just filmed it. His idea was make sure that the camera moves at a steady rate of speed regardless of what the target in frame is doing. And the problem with that was that the car oftentimes would end up half out of the shot, and then the camera would catch up to it. And the other half of the time, it would end up half out of shot because the camera was ahead of it too much. It just didn't come across as professional in the slightest. And then you've got like the in-car shots, which... choose a road that isn't so bumpy. Like, I know you can't afford the Steadicam because you're on a $10,000 budget, and I've seen in behind the scenes stuff that they had what looked like a fairly professional camera, even though the results weren't that professional. But that could be grading or anything in post that could have caused it to look as bad as it did, because there were some shots that actually didn't look too bad. So I think it's lighting and post production that is to blame for at least some of that. But yeah, just absolutely fucking terrible. I mean, the credits, we've talked about the credits already, but let me just spend a second talking about these credits that are all laid out in exactly the same typeface, same type size. They're spaced evenly, but take up the whole screen. Like, what are we doing? One of the sections for the credits said supporting casts. Are we? Have we got a bunch of plaster casts walking around doing the heavy lifting in this show? I don't get it. Like, again, I think that is down to the director's issues with the English language. If I remember correctly, he was born in Vietnam and then moved to the US at the end of the Vietnam War. So English is his second language, and I'm not going to belittle someone for not being fluent in a second language, because God knows I struggle with my first. But, like, can you not run it past like another person to just make sure that you haven't made any egregious errors or anything like that? Like, I don't know. I laugh at it. It's if anything, the supporting casts bit, that gives me that kind of warm fuzzy, like, oh, you little scamp, you didn't check that, did you? Kind of feeling. Like, I'm not going to call him out and expect him to be hung, drawn, and quartered because he put an S on the end of it. But it just kind of belies the fact that the movie was written and guided by someone that probably could have used an extra hand, an editor, someone to just make sure that everything was done correctly. I mean, when he was in that car, Andy, in the documentary, he's in his car and he's got all of that stuff written on paper and stuck to the side of it. He spelt the name of the website wrong.
Yeah.
Like...
That's one of the things that intrigued Evan Husney and...
That's right.
I think Bobby Hacker, there's a guy.
Bobby Hacker,
intrigued them to this guy. We need to see this movie. He can't even spell the title of his own movie right on a poster that he tries to use to market his movie. Yeah. But it's this thing. I think there's on a craft level there's nothing good to be found on this movie, probably. And Dave, you talked about the acting and that some of the acting isn't that bad. I think what lets the actors down to adding to their lack of acting experience or capability is that the editing lets them down as well.
Jesus,
that there's these huge gaps between two lines when people have a conversation, and that makes them look even worse than they are. Most of them aren't good. And the editing makes it even worse.
The editing could be much tighter, but I feel
David,
like... Go on, sorry.
Yeah. I wanted to say, as David kind of alluded to or framed in the bit that he said about this what was this filmmaker's intention, that is something that we all have to respect, that he had this passion, he made this movie, he finished it, it's watchable, he had it released, he made 2 sequels. Who has done that? So that at least that has to be respected.
No, I absolutely respect it, but I will continue to tear strips off of this movie because that's what we're here for. Like what you said about like the editing and the fact that there are like these long pauses and unnatural silences during speech. Even like, you know, the first interaction of the movie, when the waitress welcomes the guy into the diner, it just feels so stilted. And there's like half a second to a second of pregnant pause at the end of each cut. And what's more, you don't need to do talking heads for 2 people in a diner like that. Like, you could set the camera up so that it's a one shot, unless you don't trust the actors to be able to remember all of their lines in what is essentially a very simple scene of, "Hi, welcome to the diner. Please take a seat. Here's the menu. Would you like a coffee? No? Okay, I'll be back in a minute to take your order." Like, literally, that's all you need to do in a one shot. But instead, we got like 8 different cuts. We added an extra 50% onto the runtime that we didn't need. And my suspicion is that the editing was done in such a way, because if it was edited correctly, I say correctly, if it was edited conventionally, let's say that, I think this movie is 60 minutes long.
That was my assumption about these long car rides and things like that.
God.
That he's
Yes.
not necessarily the pauses in the dialogue, but yeah, these
There's a lot of
minutes of scenery. I think they are definitely there to get this movie to a 90-minute runtime.
Yeah, and like going back to David's point about the audio, like that is inexcusable. I'm really sorry, but like you're filming on location in the same place, and you can't even balance the background noise there. Like, what are we doing? You have a whole scene on a beach, and the noise of the crashing waves is so loud, I can't make out a single word that either of them are saying. You use blue screen for a dance scene at a random dance club,
empty pub,
I guess. Oh, they have the empty pub as well, but there's a specific scene where they're blue screened with like a blurry, colourful background, like colourful lights shining in the background in a blurred fashion. And it's green screen, and I'm like, couldn't you have done that for the beach if you'd really needed to get clean audio? The fact that they use ADR in literally like the first 5 minutes of this movie and then refuse to use it throughout the course where we actually would require it or benefit from it, like the beach scene, is maddening. Like, you know what ADR is. You've done it several times during this movie. There's a whole scene in the car where it's ADR'd. You've got a little girl who can't act for shit, but you managed to ADR her successfully. And yet all the time, we've got scenes where I can't hear a fucking word that's being said. And you listen to that and you were like, yeah, that'll do, print it. We're going with that cut. What are we doing here? I just don't understand. And then there's the inconsistencies. And I'm sorry, I'm basically reverse Farleying on this, and I'll let someone else talk in a second. But there's this entire thing about the environment, which I actually really appreciate. I think that it's something that was really laudable, that, he saw an inconvenient truth and was like, I need to try and do my bit, like to make people see that we need to be more environmentally focused. And in theory, this is a great film to do it, because although he never gave us a concrete answer at the time of the film, Hitchcock did, as we talked about last week, say that this film is about taking nature for granted. So doing a remake of The Birds, as bad as it might be, and trying to up the environmental message in itself makes a lot of sense to me. But I'm a car guy, guys. You know this. Don't come to me and tell me that you've got a plug-in hybrid Mustang 10 years before Ford made one. Just don't do that to me, because I can smell bullshit from a mile off where it comes to cars. And like that, honestly, that on its own would have lost me from some films, but this film had done so many things at this point that I was just like, okay, I'm just sticking with it. Okay, one more thing, and then I'll let one of you guys in to say a word. The scene in the hotel room before everything goes to shit, and Natalie comes out of the bathroom and she's in her skimpy underwear, and she says, "How do I look?" And then Rod, or whatever his name is, proceeds to look at her feet and very slowly track upwards like a person that's never seen a naked woman before. And then proceeds to confirm he's never seen a naked woman before by saying, "You look fun." What? I laughed my ass off at that scene. Genuinely, it's been a while since I've not only had one point in a movie where I have burst out loud and laughed and then said, "What the fuck are we doing here, people?" It happened multiple times. And
probably said fine, but both is possible and both is weird.
I rewound it to see if it might have been fine, but fun sounded closer. But fine isn't even worse.
By the sound of that movie, it's hard to tell what they're saying at any time. Yeah.
Holy shit! Like, oh, and does Rod sleep fully clothed post coitus? Is that just the thing that he does? He dresses like Bruce Willis in Die Hard after he's had sex. What the hell are we doing here? Let Whitney get dressed, for fuck's sake. Like, why? If he's all right to sleep at night in his full clothing, why does she have to wake up and hurl a bed at a door and a window, which doesn't fully cover the window, by the way, in her lingerie? Come on. A little bit of solidarity for the women folk here. Although they had to film that sex scene about 8 times, apparently. So, obviously, her thoughts and feelings on the matter weren't particularly well respected, I would think.
I don't know how many this may be stuff that's covered in the article or in the Vice thing as well, but I know at least just the Wikipedia page, there's quite a few anecdotes where it's like, oh yeah, they weren't safe in terms of on any level, like not just like the weird kind of, creepy shit there, but like they didn't have permits, it doesn't seem like, for pretty much anything that they shot. There were like tons of red flags throughout that it sounds like probably it's stuff that the actors have recounted later. When the movie kind of became what it became. I know there's an episode of How Did This Get Made, which I used to listen to pretty regularly, that they did it. And I think they had Whitney Moore on. Is it Whitney Moore on the podcast?
Whitney Moore and Weird Al Yankovic was a live episode. I haven't listened to it yet.
Really?
I have it downloaded.
I'm going to have to listen to this now.
From 2012.
Wow.
And I probably listened to the episode back then, because back in that day, I would listen to every episode if I'd seen the movie or not. But yeah, just like I think I want to say with her, it was a random, like they bumped into each other. Yeah, in a parking lot. That's what it was.
Yeah.
And she had just graduated high school and wanted an acting career. She did an audition right then and there. And then
An hour later.
She found out like an hour later. Yeah, she got the job, which was like obviously a pretty big red flag right out the gate. And just tons of stuff like that where like they would be in a park and when the director would see that there was a park ranger nearby, so he's like telling everybody pretend that they're having a picnic. Yeah, like stuff that I don't know. It's I don't know if it's because it's a different era, but it's stories that for whatever reason for me don't hit as like, oh, that's some cool DIY guerrilla filmmaking shit, as much as it just kind of sounds like, oh, this guy's seems like maybe a maniac, and like you can't like this is not a thing where you know it was, hey, we're being a little sketchy about this, but I'm looking out for my actors, and I'm like, there's also a story in there at some point where she criticized him for something, and he just like didn't talk to her for months. Like he would give her directing feedback through the other actor. Like it just sort of it doesn't seem like a fun. Who's the dude? Was it Larry Cohen? I'm trying to remember now. Who was talking about making Q the Winged Serpent and like the shit they were doing with like stuff raining down from the buildings in New York City, stuff that now you're just kind of like, oh, that's crazy, but like, oh, that's cool that you know they were fighting the system and everything. Like, but you read these stories and you're just like, oh, gee, I'm fucking glad nobody got hurt. Like this just seems crazy and irresponsible. Like there's a different tenor to it.
I had genuine concerns that scene where they're in the minivan and they're driving along. It's when they find the kids, right? And they pull over and there's like a boy in a boot, because of course there is, and the little girl in the back underneath her car. And all of this on a fairly active looking stretch of road with many, many cars passing by. And you've got the two male leads at the time, or the male lead and the male co-star or supporting actor, brandishing weapons. Like one of them has what looks like an AR-15 or an M16 or something. The other one's got like a handgun, and they're just waving them around on the side of the road while people are driving past. And I was just super concerned. If you're filming this in California, I don't know if California is an open carry state or not, but what's stopping someone from thinking that you're robbing another motorist and stopping and getting out and shooting at you? Like, it's super fucking sketchy what they're doing there. And they do it several times through the movie, and I'm assuming that it was guerrilla filming the whole way through. They didn't have permits, they didn't close off roads, because $10,000 won't buy you diddly shit these days, or them days. So there are scenes where they're in the car and they've just got, like, rifles hanging out of windows, like, pretending to shoot these birds. Like, I would love to know if they got reports that day of random minivans driving around with suspected terrorists in them or something. Like the police must have so much information about reports that they had during the time of filming of this.
I was just hoping that all those cars driving by saw a camera crew, quote unquote.
I suppose in California, especially Hollywood, I suppose the first thing you do is you see something weird, you're like, where's the camera? Yeah, that does make sense, actually. I just couldn't get it out of my head, especially because, you know, you're not even a decade after 9/11, where it seems as though America got really neurotic about anyone, you know. I put it this way, like you see James Nguyen in the area, right? He's not a white dude, and there are guns being brandished all over the place. Like somebody is going to jump to the wrong conclusion, potentially. I don't know. I mean, it's nearly a decade after, but still, like tensions could be pretty high. Oh man, so many risks taken in this movie, and like I'm wondering, because I heard that story that you mentioned already, David, about the fact that like Whitney Moore didn't speak with the director for like a month or something because of something that had happened. It was her co-star that acted as the bridge between them. So Alan Barr was the guy that told her what the director was saying. I don't suppose he was the one that said the director isn't happy with that sex scene, we're going to have to do it again for the 8th time.
Just making shit up.
Yeah,
I can't imagine that guy speaking at all ever.
I don't think he could ever lie convincingly. No.
he is a person who I'm convinced. And I feel bad saying that, but it's just crazy how alien but again, as so many people in this movie do. I also liked the shout out to the kid on the bus who had an Eazy-E shirt on. I don't know why that made me laugh. Just this random huge Eazy-E shirt makes an appearance. That whole sequence, I mean, to highlight what something out of the film as being like, this part was weird. For a movie like this is crazy because it's just every scene. But that thing on the bus in particular, the whole thing, them like not wanting to get off the bus, but in a very unconvincing way. The whole thing is so odd.
They're just standing there, and then is that meant to be bird poo that hits them?
Yeah, that like I guess I've viewed it as the acid stuff, but I mean, even we have this very prolonged sequence of them. It feels prolonged. It feels like it's 20 fucking minutes long, but of them dying. And then it cuts to Rod being like, I'm going to get out and help them. And she's like, they're dead. Like they're very clearly dead. We just watched them slowly die. Yeah. Like it wasn't even like, oh, look, it looks like they're still writhing around. Like we watched them go from completely living to completely dead. And she's like, yeah, you can't save them. And he's like, oh, you're right. Like he literally says, you're right. It's just like, what the fuck is going on? What is this? And that's the whole movie, basically, in a nutshell, is that experience. I'll keep the movie. I bought a copy of it through Severin's release or whatever, because I was like, this seems like something I'll want to have in my collection, I guess, for whatever. Just in terms of it being like a weird kind of off thing. And I have tons of movies in a similar vein, maybe not quite this rough, but. And I'll keep it for those reasons, but also it's a movie where I'm like, I can't imagine ever watching this again by myself. Like it would, it's just such an odd experience, to try to watch it as a movie. You just kind of fail immediately. There's no way to objectively interact with it.
No.
I will butcher this saying because it's from Japanese and I don't remember the exact translation, but it's about climbing Mount Fuji, and it's something like that you have to, in your life, you have to climb Mount Fuji once. If you climb Mount Fuji twice, you're a fool. Something like that. And watching Birdemic makes probably the movie equivalent of that. You have to see it once, but if you want to see it a second time, then something's wrong with you.
Yeah, if you're gonna see it a second time, take some friends and a helicopter to the top. Like, to switch the metaphor up a little bit, make it a little easier on yourself.
I think it was George Bush that coined that phrase. He said, "Climb me once, shame on me. Climb me twice, don't get climbed again." Like,
don't get climbed again.
Yeah. There's a couple of lines from this movie that did genuinely elicit a laugh from me, but not for the reasons that they were hoping. The main one is just after the share deal goes through and the company is bought for $1 billion, something that I'll come back to in a second. His best friend goes over to him and drives a remote control Ferrari into his feet, which he's brought to the office for some reason that no one explains, and then asks him, "When are you going to grow up, man?" And then just before that, there's a scene where he calls his friend, who at the time, because there's a sign on the wall that says like peace world or
imaginepeace.com.
Imaginepeace.com. Yeah. So I was like, that's a weird thing on the wall. Is this a massage parlor? And then I was like, oh, this guy's getting a happy ending. And then it was like, no, that's his girlfriend. Wait, what the fuck is going on there? I was just like, I don't understand this at all.
Yoko Ono's website.
Yoko Ono's website was being used to head up a sex scene in a movie in 2000.
And the girl later wears the Imagine Peace t-shirt. So James Nguyen it was important to him to have this message out there that people should go to Yoko Ono's website.
That's great. I didn't know it was Yoko Ono's website, so I figured it was more product placement.
I didn't know either. I was sure that it is a real website. I was sure that I imagined it was someone that they had set up, a website that they had set up. That was some promotional thing about the movie or about the message that James Nguyen wanted to give the world. But then when I looked it up, I realized, oh, this is just the official Imagine website, the John Lennon Yoko Ono Imagine website.
Oh, that makes a lot more sense. Yeah, okay. No, that's fair enough. It's just I wasn't going to plug a random website into my computer and see where it took me. So I just assumed, because the thing is, this movie does feel like one of those films that has a lot of product placement in it, and I wonder if that's because he went the way of like Night of the Living Dead and literally just went to all the local businesses, like the Irish pub with no customers that they go to for a date.
No Irish music.
No Irish music, no patrons, one barman and 2 customers. I mean, God bless Whitney Moore for really giving her all in that dance scene. Like, she really, in
that moment, I thought, okay, now she's realized what movie she's in and she's just having fun.
Yeah,
she can't be serious with this dance.
I think so. But she was giving it the beans, and God bless her for doing it. But yeah, I know that this was probably seen as an advertisement for the Irish bar. It's not the advertisement for your bar that you think it is. Like, I don't think many people are going to go to. Actually, I take that back, because there's probably an entire load of people that would ironically visit this place that really
probably
exists.
A tour, the Birdemic tour. Where
I think
you can visit
is.
all the shooting locations.
Yeah, so actually it worked out well for you in the end. But Jesus fucking Christ. Ford Mustangs don't get 100 miles per gallon. What the fuck? I'm looking at these notes.
Regarding that dance sequence in the Irish pub, at least they are dancing to the song that you are hearing in the movie. Because oftentimes with low-budget movies, you can see on the day they dance to some completely different music than they then actually used in the movie. So they were pretty much on time with the song.
Yeah, like audio again, like in that bar scene was terrible, but then they managed to rescue it for the musical performance, which is ADR'd, but fairly well. The lip syncing looked pretty decent. It wasn't the kind of song, like you already mentioned, Andy, that I was expecting from an Irish pub. An Irish pub with red double-decker buses outside, so you can tell it's legitimate. You don't get red double-deckers anywhere outside of London, I'm pretty sure. I don't know what the fuck. Also, there were signs on there for like Piccadilly Circus and stuff like that. So I don't think it's an Irish bar. I think it's a British bar that has an Irish flag hanging at the entranceway, because they're not entirely sure what the difference between the two places are. Okay, this was one of the other points where I just shouted and screamed at the screen, because whoever had written it and directed it just wasn't paying attention to their own story. They pull over to help that dude in the pickup truck, and he proceeds to take a gun out and basically hold them ransom until they give him some fuel. Then a bird comes down from the sky, like Deus Ex Machina, and takes care of the problem for them, slashing his neck and him falling to the ground and dying. First of all, makeup effects in this movie, surprisingly very good, actually, I thought. So I will give them a massive thumbs up for that. Apparently there were 2 makeup ladies that were employed on this movie, and both of them quit. So James Nguyen ended up doing the makeup himself. So I don't know who it was that was ultimately responsible for the makeup, but it was actually, I thought, really well done. But then you've got a dead man on the floor. You've got the can of gas that they were really reluctant to give him, because they just paid $100 per gallon for some fuel at the filling station before. They just leave it on the ground and drive away.
I thought about that too.
Oh my fucking God, ground my gears so badly.
It was a brief moment where I was like, why would they? Very quickly caught myself and was like, why the fuck am I even caring about something like this? Like, this is a waste of my time.
Yeah. Funnily enough, they end up running out of fuel anyway. Tom Hill, I thought, was an interesting character, but like the treehouse was just so shitty looking. If you're a wild man living in the redwoods, like, you'd have more than just like a little rickety old, I don't know. But again, he says, I'm safe. The birds only appear to be attacking people in cars and gas stations. And I was thinking to myself back to an earlier part of the scene with the when they had the 2 people that they'd met in the motel, and so the 2 guys are sitting in the car. And Rod asks the other guy, "Where's your girlfriend?" And he replies, "She's taking a shit." she ends up dying for that shit, ladies and gentlemen. Which led me to the conclusion after hearing Tom Hill talking about who was safe and who wasn't safe. Yeah, it is people in cars and gas stations, but it's also people in the middle of nowhere taking a shit, isn't it, Tom? Just no real rhyme or reason there whatsoever. And the last thing I'll say, because I'm aware I've taken up far too much time on this podcast, but I needed to get this stuff off my chest. It is and I'm going to read this word for word because I feel this in my gut. I really do. I think it is a genuine failure of this movie that after the kids reject the food that was caught and cooked for them because it wasn't a Happy Meal, that I wanted the birds to kill them. Such unlikable children. Like, genuinely fucking hateable children. I wanted to see them die. Oh, my God. I want a Happy Meal. It's the end of the world. McDonald's is closed. We have fish. I want a Happy Meal. Well, shut the fuck up then. I'll eat it. Like, you whiny little bitches. Honestly. And then they just... the closing credits. I can't imagine filming that. Just stand there and wait for 3 minutes. Stopwatch has started. They're literally just standing there looking at the birds who are flapping their wings but not getting any further away or closer to us. They're just hovering in midair. Like, I like the idea of having a scene that the titles roll over, but every time I thought it was going to fade out, it just kept going and kept going. And I was like, come on, guys. We don't need to see this. You can fade out now. The movie's over. Go home. It's over. Like, it's done.
There was another weird kind of like very specific nostalgia thing that triggered for me with and this goes back significantly further, but when I was a kid in the 90s, there was this computer CD-ROM software game. I don't necessarily know how to describe it, but it was based off of the 90s Spider-Man animated series. And it was essentially like almost like I'm trying to remember. I think they pitched it as a movie maker, so you could make your own animated Spider-Man thing. So like they would give you like different frames that would be like well, not a frame, like a background. So it might be, here's one of the Daily Bugle. Here's one of the street. Here's a rooftop. Here's Peter and MJ's apartment. And then you had this bank that you could pull of all these different characters that when you could click them and like basically stick them on the scene as a sticker. But if you clicked and held and moved them, they would have some sort of animation, usually like 3-second animation that would loop. And so you had like very rudimentary sort of like, camera controls. So you could hit record, add that stuff in. You could draw things like MS Paint. If you wanted to add word balloons, they had different stickers for explosions, stuff like that. So it would have, again, at most like 3 seconds of an animation looping. It is basically exactly how the birds work in this. Like, yeah. It's a thing with a loop that looks like a sticker on top of everything else, and then it has these like sort of canned animations that it would use or whatever. And yeah, it was so odd having that transport me back, which would have been, a good 10, 15 years before even what this was. And it looked about the same. But just having that memory of as a kid of being like, oh, I made this scene where like, I remember one I made that I would rewatch sometimes was one where it was like the Spider-Man fighting a bunch of guys on a bridge, and then the Kingpin walks over it as they're destroying the bridge, and I had the bridge like crumble and him fall into the water and have this like splash effect or whatever. And it looks like total dog shit. It's awful. Like, but it is this like sort of like rudimentary animation thing. And just to think that was not only essentially used here, but ad nauseum, like you see those fucking birds flapping the same way and exploding or whatever else over and over and over. Like just that I could read a, 15-page academic paper going into the psychological breakdown of how a man puts not even a man, but just how a filmmaker puts that together in a film and is like, yeah, this is it. Like this either looks scary or impactful, or like it's just it just very obviously everyone sees it and has the same reaction of it looking so bad. But it was used over and over, and like that kind of fascinates me, where I'm just like, does he see it differently than us? Like, is this a thing where like
maybe
now you run into people that are older that see AI and can't tell that it's AI? Like they just think it looks amazing. And I've noticed this, like, and have wondered about this constantly. Like, it'll happen with my dad all the time, where like my dad will send a video to my sisters and I, and it'll be like a bunch of penguins on a fucking trampoline or something. I'm just making something up. And it'll be like, oh, check out this funny, like, cute video or whatever. And we'll be like, yeah. By the way, Dad, that's 100% AI. Like we can see it immediately, but, and he's not the only, person I've encountered that's older that just can't see it. So there's that kind of captures my imagination too, where it's like, does Nguyen just not, does it look good to him? Does it look creepy to him? Like, does he know I'm cutting corners? Like, there's just so many aspects of the bird effects on their own where I'm just like, what the fuck is going on? Like, how does this dude see this? And to have it be reused over and over again, like, there's a confidence there that's just very weirdly misplaced. I don't get it.
It's
I don't really have a point here.
No. Because I
completely
completely agree with you. I think that the problem that I have with it is the fact that there are several different types of animation that are demonstrated throughout the movie, and not all of it is just the standard one that they use for like the double-decker bus scene where it's the back of the bird and it's flapping its wings and it's stuck in place, right? There are other animations that he has access to of birds flying from left to right, and at different angles. And I'm just like, in 95% of the scenes that utilize this, I hesitate to call it a special effect. It's more like an emoji.
Yeah,
but like a sticker or a GIF. Yeah, like I feel like he's not only chosen the wrong animation of the ones he has available, but somehow he's managed to choose the worst possible one of all of the ones available to him. Because like the doves at the end of the movie that are flying around in a circle, although at the time I thought they might be seagulls because white birds on the edge of the beach, probably seagulls, right? But apparently they're doves. Signature of peace. That they're going around in a circle, so he's got that one in his bag. There were birds swooping down from left to right. So there's all these different animations and different movements that he can take advantage of. And for someone that is such a big fan of Alfred Hitchcock and specifically references the birds in his movie as well as the documentary, I'm perplexed by the fact that he didn't pick up on the fact that a lot of the time when the birds' effects were used in the film, they were effective because they were literally just blurs whipping from one side of the screen to the other, coming in and out of shot constantly. When they were still, as I don't remember if we mentioned this or not, but during the documentary that was on the disc for the birds that I watched last week, they mentioned the fact that schoolyard scene when all of the birds are sitting on the play apparatus, there was only maybe half a dozen live birds in that shot, and the rest of them were cardboard cutouts and stuffed versions of birds and things like that had no movement to them. But Hitchcock was talking to the young girl who ended up in the Witches of Eastwick and Alien and all those films, and she said to him, like, won't people see that they're all fake birds? And he said no, because their eye will be drawn to the movement. So, and he was right, because although you can pick out that there are birds that are absolutely definitely still and probably not real, your eye is drawn to the ones that are flapping their wings or ruffling their feathers or whatever. So it's not a case of needing to have 100 birds on screen. It's about what you do with the assets that you have. And he always picks the wrong one somehow.
Yeah. And to your point, like, I thought about that earlier too. Like, a lot of times you'll see, a shitty effect or a moment or whatever in a horror movie or a low budget thing, and you're just like, okay, that was the best they could do under that particular circumstance. They tried to be quick with the editing or hide it or whatever. Like, this dude doesn't hide it and he reuses it over and over. So it's just this kind of crazy thing of like, well, what's happening here? Like, there's either a misplaced confidence or just delusion or lying to yourself that it looks better or it doesn't look bad because you don't want to admit that it's a disaster. Like, it's just, I could analyze and try to unpack that decision in and of itself forever, but maybe some of that will be answered once I watch this little documentary and read this article. But yeah, I feel similarly to what you guys have said too. Like, this is the end of my journey with Birdemic. I don't have any interest in watching the sequels. I don't think I need to know. And in fact, I think if anything exists about this that does make it special or unique or notable, it would only be diluted and or just immediately lost with a sequel that's trying to, in any way tap into something like this again. You can't, like, it's just kind of impossible. And I don't mean that complimentary either. But it's just like, it exists because it was a dysfunctional sort of mess is what it feels like, but it does make this unique thing. And,
but good for him for making the thing he wanted to make. That's the thing.
Yeah.
Like, I shit all over the movie today. I don't think it's a good movie, but I did have a laugh watching it in places, but he's made 3 movies. I've not made any movies. So ultimately, who am I to really say one way or the other? But he got off his arse and he did something. So good for him. And clearly I think he knew before he made the second one what the take home from the first one was, and hopefully he's lent into that more than he's. I just don't want him to think that he's making good movies. That's my worry.
You watched the Vice documentary to the end, have you?
I caught the end of the documentary. I had to watch with subtitles on, but I know that he got talking to a representative group, and there were definitely the plans for the second one at the time, weren't there?
Well, the second one had been made, and he was wanting to make the third one.
Oh, the third one. Yeah.
But the end of the documentary, I think, gives you good context and puts everything into perspective. What kind of guy he is, and
he seems happy enough.
Maybe.
Like, he seems to think that his Dell is going to be worth something someday. So.
Oh boy, I'm excited to watch this little documentary. All right, I think we're basically done. Unless you guys have any other big thoughts, we could do double feature picks. Any other final notes?
Oh, good.
All right. Andi, kick us off. What do you got for double feature pick this week?
So I did not pick a movie because I don't know which movie do you want to sacrifice with this one? No, but we talked about the Bad Movie Bible YouTube channel, and as I said, this is exactly the type of movie that comes up in his video essays or in their video essays. I'm not sure. Maybe Birdemic has shown up in some of these videos. I just don't remember. But the one video essay that I picked to pair with this one is called A Top 10 of Vanity Projects, the Best Worst Ego Exploitation. So he does these best worst lists where it's just the best of the bad movies, and this, as the title suggests, is a video essay about independent people who make their own movies. Usually they also star in them, so Birdemic doesn't probably quite apply to be in the ego exploitation genre, but still it's such a fun video about, we would probably say, delusional people who have the drive and the money to make a movie, to write, direct, and star in a movie, and most of the time they're not good. So basically The Room, but more of that. So yeah, the best worst ego exploitation top 10 vanity projects on the Bad Movie Bible channel. That's my double feature pick.
Perfect. Dave, what you got?
First of all, I've just rewatched the last couple of minutes of the documentary, and yeah, the guy's delusional. God bless him, but he's the studio can take over. They can put $10 or $20 million into it. I don't think anyone's spending $10 or $20 million on a Birdemic movie, mate. To be honest,
yikes.
I would certainly advise people that they should watch, and I'm not a big fan of the channel anymore, but at this time they weren't all up their asses about AI and stuff. Corridor Crew did an episode where they did a reworking of the VFX for Birdemic, which I thought was quite interesting. So that might make a decent pairing with it. However, I'm going to go left field with a movie that's got nothing to do with birds, nothing to do with anything other than the fact it's another horror movie, which I very much disliked, but perhaps I like a lot more now on the basis of watching this. You know it's coming. You know it's coming. Deathgasm. Why not? I think probably got a lot more going for it now that I've seen this.
I'm not going to be super original, but I honestly do think it's kind of a fun and interesting thing to go with the birds. I'm going to pick the birds. Like this weird kind of highbrow, lowbrow, like this influence to this thing. Like the idea of Alfred Hitchcock being able to watch this movie kind of delights me.
Oh my God.
Like, and see, like, obviously that's not what his legacy was, is this is the sum total of that by any stretch, but just that there would be this thing where it's like, can you imagine even just explaining the phenomenon, the cult status around a movie like this to him, decades after, like, it's such a weird, unique kind of thing. And it does sort of highlight everything that doesn't work about this movie and how it does kind of work in the birds, even including the, mixed, like we had a mixed response on the show, but even like the interpersonal dynamics and like how the kind of movie that the original one is, and at first, and how it's this like romantic kind of drama thing, and then it shifts gears pretty considerably, but just how differently that works when you know what you're doing, and when there's competent people involved, and it's a completely different scale and level than something like this is. But then seeing the like DIY misguided sort of like lunatic pass at that idea or whatever is this movie in a lot of ways. And I don't know, I think it does kind of work as a double feature with. So you either have to go with something that's like, yeah, complementary to what it's doing, or bad in a different way or in an intentional way, or you got to just go completely opposite, where it's like, all right, we'll watch an actual good movie and then we'll have like a big point of contrast, which would be Birdemic. So that'll be my pick. Okay, listeners, let us know what you thought. If you did, God have mercy on your soul, watch this movie. Let us know, eerieinternational@gmail.com, if you want to send us some longer form thoughts. And then, give us a follow over on social media, especially Instagram. We'll announce whatever it is we're doing next week. In the meantime, stay safe out there, keep watching horror movies, and we will see you next week.
Bye-bye.
Bye.